Namaste. Welcome to Bharat Vichar. Today we are joined by a new guest. She is Akshita Singh Badoria. She is a writer with Op India, a YouTuber, and a young entrepreneur who has just started her own organization called Samyukta Bharata to serve Bharat and Dharma. Suswagatam, Akshita ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Akshita, what caught my attention was your article in Op India. It was about the murder of Nikita Tomar. And today, I don't know, I have mixed emotions about this whole thing. Her killers were convicted and were given life sentences. But your article, it basically talks about how the left media try to dehumanize Nikita's parents for wanting justice for her daughter, for their daughter. But the left media demonized them because the killer happened to be a Muslim. And I read the article and I was started to think how they can spin the narrative and make the victim the aggressor, and the aggressor as some kind of a love lost puppy who just did this out of I don't know, it was a mad frenzy and he shot her out of love. So I want you to talk about that particular article that you wrote for Op India.
Correct. So like you said that, they spun the entire narrative around, and it seems that it comes very naturally to them, very unfortunately. So when I came across that article, it was actually pointed out by Swati Goyalji from Swarajya. So that's how I came across that article. And then when I read the entire article, I was in complete disbelief because what seemed to be like a very unbiased article, which seemed to be like a very plain regular reporting from its headline, the moment I entered into the article, there were just 2 to 3 lines that spoke about the verdict, and almost instantly they got into dehumanizing not just Nikita Tomar's family, her father, but the entire Hindu community. So literally, just the fourth line kind of begins with the entire narrative of how Hindu or right-wing organizations have been trying to portray this as love jihad, and apparently they alleged that there has been a pressure by these organizations on the parents and family of Nikita Tomar to convert this into a love jihad case, or into a case of communal disharmony. Now again, it is very shocking because Nikita's family have given a lot of statements. They have narrated the entire timeline right from the time when she was kidnapped for the very first time by Tosi. The one who murdered her.
Let's say his name.
Yeah.
He is now a convicted felon.
Correct,
he committed a crime. It was caught on CCTV camera. And I believe his lawyers tried to even spin a narrative saying that he was not even present when Nikita got shot, which is not surprising. Actually, this has happened before. You may not remember, but Jessica Lal murder case, there was a film also. No one killed Jessica. And if it had not been the effort of the media, the social media, people like you and I, then it would have been another case of no one killed Nikita. And that took a very long time. You would have been very, very young. But I remember that case vividly. They were holding marches. And there are other stuff where powerful people, using their influence. There was that Priyadarshini Mattu case where she was killed. And the killer was the son of a civil servant, senior civil servant, a police officer, I think. And they got away with it. So, yeah, sorry, please continue.
No, like you very correctly said that it's actually not surprising, like you said. So even Tausif has political connections. He has some uncle who's into Congress. But yeah, like I said, that what really put me in disbelief is them really trying to prove the fact that it was a very simple and a plain murder. It was just a revenge murder. I mean, the casualness in their entire approach it really, that's something that I will never be able to comprehend. I mean, they were just trying to pass it off as, there's nothing special about this case. It's just another murder in a broad daylight. So I went back to a couple of so I went back to all the articles done by Quint and some of the other publications on Nikita Tomar case, and they have very conveniently weeded out every single statement given by Nikita Tomar's family, narrating, even saying, I mean, her mother gave a statement that Tausif's mother actually had pressurized Nikita into converting and marrying him, apparently saying that, once that you have been kidnapped, nobody is going to marry you, you have been tainted. So why don't you simply marry my son and get converted? Now these are the statements that were that were given by Nikita's family. Now it really, if you go to think, why somebody who's lost a young daughter, a very bright daughter, would give some random statements like this? Correct. I mean, why would they just, I mean, they're already grieving. They're already in disbelief. They don't know what has happened to them. And you are, on top of it, trying to tell that, no, the statements given by the parents are under the right-wing organization pressure, and they're trying to give a communal angle. Who even thinks of those things, when they have lost a child? So very conveniently, they erased all the statements. Not once have they bothered to take into account the statements or the comments given by Nikita's family. Almost all their articles, simply they have collected some videos and tweets of the right-wing or Hindu organizations who were supporting Nikita, and they have been trying to flare the entire issue as though it is the Hindus or Nikita's family or these right-wing organizations who are trying to make it communal or give it a love jihad angle. So I'm actually not very sure whether to be surprised or not. It's kind of very regular for us, because if you must have read, I'm sure, like you're saying, you read that article. So I have covered how they have previously tried to humanize terrorists.
Yes.
While demonizing the victims and dehumanizing the victims, they try and humanize the terrorists, be it even murderers for that matter, even rapists for that matter. So how do they manage to do that? It's something that I will honestly never be able to understand.
Thank you for that, Akshita. But actually, thing is, if you remember the Burhan Wani case,
yes,
the son of a school teacher, and how that was spun, and that took an entirely different proportion, and even some people from the West saying that, oh, maybe he should have been, taken in alive. And if that had happened, I wouldn't be surprised if he had ended up becoming an MLA from Kashmir, because how it works. Now there is rehabilitation of terrorists, and then there are those who have crossed a certain line, and you simply can't do anything about that.
Right.
Anyway, based on that, also I actually myself wrote an article yesterday with regards to that mass shooting in America, in Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, where they just went crazy as soon as they saw white Caucasian. They just went crazy. Meena Harris, the brilliant niece of Vice President Kamala Harris, the convenient Hindu, as I call her. If and when it is convenient, she's a Hindu. If not,
she's a Hindu when she wants to bash a Hindu.
It's a convenient Hindu, Hindu by convenience. A Baptist African American woman by choice. So anyway, that's her problem. She said, oh, white man killed. And then when the name came, suddenly there was silence. I was watching CNN, and immediately the mental health aspect of the killer started to make rounds. No, he was bullied. Oh,
that's
this
what
happened,
his brother
that
said.
happened.
That's what his brother said, that he was bullied for being a Muslim, and that's how he became antisocial. So, yeah.
No, so and Ilhan Omar actually went on to say that he was having a bad day. Apparently, someone else had also mentioned that line, and Ilhan Omar decided to, use that line, and and she got bashed for that. And then Linda Sarsour said, oh, it is again a case where a white man had committed a murder. It should not be a case of Arab and all that. Don't bring
Right.
religion into this and that, and so on and so forth. So the thing is that I was watching CNN, and then they got suddenly into the mental aspects, and then the gun control. Like, oh, we need to bring gun control. So and so did not pass the law a few days back. That's why he managed to get. But this guy, forgetting his name, some Alasi or something like that. He was on FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations watch list. Still, he managed to purchase a gun, not an automatic weapon. So it's quite surprising. But right now they are, and the news completely disappeared off the cycle. 10 people shot, one cop, father of 7 children. Father of 7 children. Imagine, his 7th child would be 7th, 6th, 5th. They would be very, very young, dead. And the news is now completely out of the news cycle. In fact, I think even in India, I think because Modi had traveled to Bangladesh, it's not being covered that much. But right now, I don't see a lot of shouting going on in the left liberal media sphere regarding this
They
case.
can't. I mean, the fact that it's been captured on camera, there's very little that they can do. Had this incident not been captured on camera, I mean, if you remember correctly, Rinku Sharma's case, correct?
Yes.
So when the incident happened, the final incident happened, not everything was captured, but the entire movement and the timeline was definitely captured, and they tried their level best to give it a different angle. They almost instantly, the entire blame was put on Rinku Sharma, that he had they got in the business angle, wherein he was into a job. I mean, he had nothing to do with the business. So they got in the business angle. They said that he got alcohol at the party, and I don't know, all sorts of stories started to do the round. So this is actually a very fascinating video, very interesting video by Befitting Facts. It's a Twitter handle. He's put out a 10-minute, it's just a 10-minute video wherein he's fact checked alt news 10 times. So in that video, he's picked up 10 instances where alt news, the self-acclaimed fact checker, they have very conveniently, to suit their narrative, have picked up a news piece. They have weeded out the content that wasn't suiting their narrative. They put it out. After they were caught, nothing. They either simply make some amendments to the write up, which obviously nobody is going to even read after 10 days, but they're completely silent. They will not bother to tweet about it, apologize, or put it out that sorry, we got the facts wrong, or there was something that we did not put it out openly in the media. Nothing. Very quietly, once caught, they will make some amendments to their article, and that is it. So that's literally how, I mean, they play the entire narrative game. And it's funny that they blame others for doing it, wherein it's them actually who champion it.
The left actually harps on trying to end victim shaming, but they are the leaders when it comes to actually shaming the victims.
They create victims. It's not even just shaming victims, but how their entire process starts is they'll pick on a group, they will identify a group, they will seed this thought into them that they are the victims of different kind of, I don't know, they'll come up with random atrocities. They will so much so that the person definitely might be facing certain difficulties, but instead of trying to come out of it, is pushed more into depression and negative thinking and into victimization of self. And I have seen this actually happening to people who are enough fortunate. There's nothing very wrong happening around them. Life is pretty okay, pretty ordinary, But the entire social media narrative and propaganda somehow makes them believe that, they are a victim of some sort of atrocity. So that's what they do. They identify the vulnerable groups, they seed it into their mind that they are victims, they then play the victim card basis them. I mean, they will not do anything for the victim, they will not do anything for the victim other than using them as a platform to step on and, play their narratives and their propaganda. That's all that they do.
Well, actually, in my observation, many left media outlets, whenever something like this happens, I think they basically cross their fingers and say, "Oh God, I hope the killer is a Hindu and the victim is a Muslim."
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
once that happens, they just start salivating. That's what I
Correct.
wrote. They salivate at the prospect of a Hindu
Correct.
committing a murder, and the person who got killed happens to be a Muslim. Now that there was this case where a Hindu killed a Muslim, it was regarding fighting over a seat, but then they created such a huge noise on that,
Yeah,
and
they
the entire
replaced
truth.
the S with M, and all sorts of things happened to turn it into a hate-driven propaganda.
Actually, when I used to live in Delhi, the place where a few days back that riot took place, Sarai Kale Khan, not that far from my place actually, where I used to live in Delhi. The girl consensually left with the boy, a Hindu boy, happens to be a Hindu Dalit boy, and then they go get married. They give a statement. They go to the police. They record it. There is no coercion on the part of the Hindu boy pretending to be a Muslim. There is no one. Balaji is not trying to be Bilal. It's a Hindu. It's completely organic, if I may use that term. And then you just see what happens. They come in droves and start smashing everyone and saying that you took one girl, we will take 10 girls from you. That mentality and that aspect was not reported at all. Swati Goyal Sharma did the wonderful coverage of that event, and it is an event actually. It's actually quite well planned, and I think Op India also went and spoke to quite a lot of people and did extensive research on that. But mainstream media went, you would not catch them dead over there.
It was even I question them actually on Twitter, even though I have a very small following and I know that they're not really going to come across my tweet. But then I did question them that now, when the entire love jihad law was passed, and now that the law is in effect as well, and so they were all like, now we're not even free to marry the one we want to marry, this, that, and how can you are against interreligion marriage and you're trying to create a Hindu-Muslim divide. Where are those people now? Why did they not comment on this incident, and why did they not beat their chest saying that now it is the other community who's trying to create this Hindu-Muslim divide? Why are they sleeping now? But you know what, I strongly believe that this hypocrisy is helping us. This blatant hypocrisy is simply going against them. It is not helping them at all, because people have started to see through this hypocrisy. Like, I actually received a very interesting comment today on one of my tweets, saying that it's beyond hypocrisy. It's not even hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is a very small term for the left media in today's day and age. They are beyond this hypocrisy, and somehow, like, earlier they used to do it under a garb, they used to do it very subtly, it was not out in the open as blatantly. But now, it is just helping the other side and not helping them at all, for sure. That's something that at least I can sense.
I think perhaps they are some of the most self-delusional people that
Correct.
you would come across, who pretend to sit on a moral high horse and always have the high ground of holding the high ground of morality. But at the same time, when
they actually don't. I mean, how
no, they don't.
By being selective, you can't. I mean, how is somebody taking a moral high ground by being selective? If you really are that moral, and if you're that secular and liberal, speak on every single issue. how can you give those tags to yourself while being selective? And you
Exactly.
are also bashing the majority, correct? It's not that fine. I find you favor a community. That's your choice. You completely you see that there's something wrong happening. Like I mean, they assume that there's something wrong happening to that community. You feel that something should be done to help them. Fine, work towards it. But that doesn't give them an authority to demonize the ones who are in the majority. I mean, and if you are liberal and secular, I mean, speak equally for all.
Well, I think somewhere down the line, speaking the truth and then running away from the truth has become part of the liberal left media. In fact, I used to admire Washington Post and New York Times for their expose and what they did. Bit of a history buff. So in the 1970s, 71, 72, the Washington Post and New York Times, they exposed President Nixon. It's called the Pentagon Papers, and they were willing to go to jail for that, and they fought, really hard. They fought on facts. But now, if you see New York Times, they won't talk about the New York governor who has been accused of sexual harassment, but they won't talk about it. They will not ask for his resignation and how he fudged data with the COVID cases. They will not talk about that. And the mass murder in Boulder, Colorado, simply falls out of the news cycle. And I was desperately trying to see if this Tosif case would be making any rounds with any of the heavy hitters of the left, the heavy hitters of the left in Twitter. None whatsoever. As if okay, I don't think, as we say in Hindi, yahan par abhi dal nahi galegi, let's go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
and they manufacture. I mean, if you see jo Dasna mein hua, the boy who was slapped for because that was not captured, and because Bhaisa riots was really trending, people had suddenly shifted the entire focus, and they started to realize that something is really going wrong in Bhaisa. And why because I mean, people started to question that when you were outraging over no internet in Kashmir, wherein there was no internet in Jammu and Kashmir, but you were outraging for Kashmir, calling it a human rights violation. But when Bhaisa is completely out of connectivity, nobody can enter. Even the politicians, the leaders, the local, corporators, nobody is allowed to visit. There's a complete blackout. We don't know what's happening, but you will definitely not see human rights violation there. So suddenly, when the entire country, even the mainstream media, started to focus and started to question what's happening in Bhaisa, because there were reports of a minor Hindu girl being raped by a Muslim neighbor. So the moment these kind of, I mean, these stories started to catch on, instantly they came up with a dasna. And it was very easy and convenient for them because, I mean, nothing was caught on camera, right? I mean, it was absolutely hilarious where, I mean, surely the boy must have been slapped, shouldn't have been done, but the Dasna authorities, the temple authorities have given enough proofs and reasons as to why that step was taken. But it's absolutely hilarious that the very next day, the entire left media reached out to that boy, and he had his entire head bandaged. A day before, there was not a single mark
that was caught on
his
camera, actually.
head. And
that was caught on camera. Probably learned from some politician from, I think she's in Congress now, in Delhi. So I will not name her. I don't want to get into trouble. So she's quite famous for, bandaging. And of course, there is one particular great leader in West Bengal who got injured, and she shall remain nameless. You know who, like Voldemort. Correct. So I'm not gonna name. But here in Bangalore, so in Karnataka, a 14-year-old boy had given a gift to a Muslim girl.
Gifted a mobile phone.
And he was brutally tortured. His private parts were cut, and then he was thrown into the river. No coverage.
Nothing, not at all.
And
but it'll be very surprising if we expect any coverage from them on these issues. We shouldn't. Our motive should be, if we come across such incidents, our motive should be to make sure to reach out to as many people as possible, questioning the left media is really not going to help us, because I mean, like I said, the hypocrisy is really out in the open for everybody to see, and we all know that they are not going to touch such issues at all. Whatever happens, it just doesn't suit their narrative. So there's no point questioning them. Our agenda, our motive should be there, should be to take such incidences to as many people possible through different mediums, be it through casual conversation with our friends, be it through Instagram stories, be it through YouTube channel like yours and mine, be it through the articles that we write, be it through Twitter hashtag trend or whatever it is. I do not expect help from two. One, the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is equally selective, and I am not, most of the times I'm not very happy with the kind of shows and content that they come up with, because again, it's all just political. It's all just what suits their narrative. It's all what suits their TRP. You see the same panel featuring every single day. What really bothers me is they do not bother to give a voice to anybody else, to the ordinary Indians, to the young India. Nothing. The panel is set, and these are just political spokies who come and get into this, who start wrestling in the mud, and that is all. And very few topics that they deem fit for a prime time. And the second are the leftists. Definitely, I'm not expecting them to pick up if the victim is a Hindu. I will never expect that. So yeah, so leaving these two aside, I think then the responsibility kind of comes on us as normal citizens to create as much awareness as we can, to ensure that especially the fence sitters or the young audience do not get trapped by the leftist media, publications, celebrities, personalities, you name it, and they have it all, be it historians. And what really amazes me is that, yeah, one fact that they they stay a step ahead. They have captured a platform like Instagram, where you will find most of the millennials and Gen Z absolutely brilliant. I don't remember that. Just day before yesterday, I saw first post. I saw a lot of my friends sharing a story, an Instagram story done by First Post, denying that Rashmi Samant, the Oxford student, was harassed. They pinned the entire blame on Rashmi Samant, saying that she was racist and I don't know, they all those fancy
xenophobic,
words that they use.
xenophobia.
Whatever
most of the
terms that they
millennials won't
use.
even know what xenophobia is, let alone
Exactly.
spell it.
Correct.
And
But
the anti-Semite.
likes and shares and thousands, stories shared by I don't know how many, and it was and they fact checked it with fake. They literally had Rashmi Samant's photo. She was being she was harassed, and fake written right on her forehead.
I must have missed it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Actually, the real culprit is the professor there. That
yeah, I did
Bengali
a detailed article on him as well.
Could you talk about that article, please?
Sorry?
Could you talk about that article that you wrote?
So basically, it was just that there's the Hindu British community that's basically who started an online petition, and it's being supported by a lot of big personalities in India. So that kind of picked up, that was trending. So I just made an article. I wrote an article on that, and it also captured the actions of the apparent Hindu Oxford faculty, who is very proudly anti-Modi and anti-BJP and anti-India.
It's on his Twitter timeline, I think, anti-Modi or something like that.
Yeah. So that's it's right next to his name. He's mentioned that in the bracket very proudly. His Twitter banner says "Go back, Modi." I don't know from where. And yeah, I mean the kind of comments, and he keeps scrolling into the Twitter timeline of all the celebrities who support the Hindu cause or the Indic cause, and the kind of comments, it's crass. It's beyond.
Even though this is a YouTube channel and we have certain liberties, unlike mainstream media, but the thing that he said about Kangana Ranaut is something which I come from a time where if we see girls are standing, suddenly our behavior will change completely, and we will not be using any words, certain words that men use. We won't even utter it. And because I come from that generation, nowadays I see that it's hip to use the F word by everyone, and I find that to be,
and it's with both the genders. I mean, it's not just, I mean, they are very okay slamming the women. They are completely okay using all kinds of language against women, and women are okay with phrases like all men are trash and all men are dogs. I mean, things that I really I can't comprehend, even though I belong to the very same generation who has popularized it, but I can never relate to statements like this.
Good to know that we have young people like you who are in their 20s and want to do something for the country.
There are many like me, when I'll just, if I could just take 2 minutes.
Yeah, please.
So I was not very, I mean, I was always interested in politics. I was always aware of what's happening around me, but I never put my view out in the public, because with the way things were happening around me, I thought probably I'd be the only one to speak proudly about my country or about a political party or a political leader. So I used to keep my views to myself. But last year, with Agrima Joshua's video, that's something that really triggered me, and I ranted on a video against them, I mean the comedians. And I was in no mood. I don't know why I shot that video. I'm very camera shy. I don't like coming in front of the camera. I shouldn't be saying that now with my own YouTube channel. But yeah, just last July, I think June or July.
I saw that 2-minute YouTube clip actually. That
it's a long one actually. I think I ranted for around like 7 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that. And I was in no mood to kind of put it anywhere, because I've never done that before. And then I just sent it across to a friend of mine, and so even he was very surprised. Usne aisa video bana diya. We've never seen her do something like that. We've never seen her that vocal. And he just said that you put it up on Twitter. And I think that time around I had I wasn't active on Twitter at all. I had created an account back in 2013 or 14, but I never used it. And somehow just organically I had around like 300-350 followers. I'm like, who's going to watch it? Just leave it. He said, no, put it out. I put it out and it went viral. And then the kind of support that I started to receive, that kind of reignited my faith, and it kind of made me confident of the fact that there are many like me. It's just that some of us are still fearful of voicing our opinion, considering the atmosphere around us. But yeah, I have seen that change in the past, not even 1 year. I mean, it was just June or July that I put it out, and I'm seeing that change. So I think it was just during this period when I realized that no, there is enough support, there are enough people who want to work towards nation building, towards genuine nation building, towards genuine, towards the cause of Hinduism, towards Hindu society, the Indic cause. People want to strengthen it. So that is how actually I came about the idea of starting Samyukta Bharata, my organization. It was only when I started to communicate more and more that I realized there are many like us actually who want to work towards this cause. It's just that people are waiting for an opportunity, and once you give it to them, they're more than happy to do it.
I'm certainly very, very happy that you decided to, let's just not call it rant, let's just call it you were hurt. It was your agony, and you spoke from your heart. And I think that's why people, it resonated with the people, I believe. There are many videos where you can see people shouting and yelling on top of their lungs, and it goes nowhere. But sometimes, once in a while, when you speak from your heart, it resonates with the people. So I'm very, very happy that you did that. I'm glad that people like you, who are, I would say, at least on an average 15 16, 17 years younger than me. So basically, that's a generational shift. I would call you guys the internet generation. You grew up with the internet. I grew up during.
We actually we too come from a little transitional phase. But yeah, I mean, we were fortunate that we got internet. We were just growing up and we were in the stage where, we were really curious. So that's how we just got like hands-on with the entire technology.
No, actually, I grew up during the 1980s. So I grew up with the DD generation where television used to be start from evening 6, end at, I think, 9:30. So I'm glad that happened because I used to spend a lot of time outside playing. And I don't see kids playing, that much outside. They are with their smartphones and all. Anyway, Akshita, as we come to the end of this discussion, I want to ask you, where your this organization that you have started, Samyukta Bharata, would it be focusing on millennials like you, those who are in their 20s or now who would be entering college? And we have so many of these ads which the kids get bombarded at, that you have to be certain hip, this and that. Nothing wrong in that. Do whatever you want. It's a free country. But is your organization sort of like focusing on them, if I may ask?
We will be, not at the moment, because very, very new. We're at a nascent stage. We are still gathering, support on ground. For now, focus remains on working towards a lot of Indic cause. Once we manage to do that, and also because of the fact that schools and colleges are shut right now, so there's not much that we'll be able to do. But yeah, the intent is to captivate the youth as much as possible, especially the ones in college. I am hoping that by the time colleges reopen, we will also have a very solid base, so we will be able to approach them in a much better way with better ideas. See, we are not, I mean, our intention is to not we're not in a propaganda or a narrative kind of game. We genuinely want to work towards two causes. Like I said, one is nation building and one is towards the Indic causes. Both these causes have been corrupted terribly by the left. So even something like, being like just caring for the environment, which is so natural to Sanatan. There are a lot of festivals that we have that revolve just around the nature.
Yes.
So these are the things that need not be taught if we are aware of them. So it's just that we wish to take our culture and our true history back to them. That is our only motive. Get back the areas, the domains that have been captured by the left. We kind of want to rectify them and get back to where they should be. So that's going to primarily that's our target. But yeah, at the moment we are focusing on creating a good on-ground strength and working towards some of the programs that we have identified. Slowly, definitely, we'll be hoping that we'll be able to tap on the youth and the college audience as well.
Certainly, and I wish you all the best, and I hope there are many more like you out there. And Akshita, I want to thank you for coming on Bharat Vichar and sharing your views. Your article actually spoke to me, resonated with me. So that's why I contacted you, and I'm glad you came on your show. It's very good to see young people so passionate about social causes and the culture of India. So I want to thank you and dhanyavad.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's hope we will again connect and talk on some other issues. Thank you so much. Dhanyavad.
Thank you.